rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll, baby. It's time to talk about Peter Wolf. We're so excited. For those of you still joining as the field increases of people, thank you so much for coming. Hi, everyone. I'm Polly Simpkins. If you don't know who I am, I'm the host of Rock and Roll Book Club. This is our 12th book club, so it's a really cool. I was just earlier today going over old book clubs and like going through old videos, and I was amazed at kind of back in the day. It was 2 years ago now that we started, and some of the same faces have shown up at every single one. So thank you to you for being here. I'm so happy to be talking about Peter Wolf. First of all, I have a couple of thank yous to get started, and don't forget to turn your sound off if you can, just in case you're getting settled. I want to say thank you to Tidcomb's Bookshop and Brewster Bookstore for being our sponsors. We never had a sponsor before early on, and now we have sponsors. We're huge fans of independent bookstores. They're important to us. And thank you to Tidcomb's and Brewster Bookstore on the Cape for supporting MVY Radio's Rock and Roll Book Club. Huge thanks to Joe Stickles for, now that he's a married man, he has got the ring on his finger, as we were saying earlier, and he missed last book club because he was on his honeymoon, but he is here now, and I could never do this without him. So thank you so much, Joe. Thank you to my son, Justin, who helps with the videos that we watch at the beginning of the gathering. Thank you so much to PJ Finn, who has been such a big supporter of Rock and Roll Book Club, has helped me a lot. And thanks to all my colleagues who support this wonderful adventure. Thanks to Alan Rosenberg, who just jumped on. He is the host of the Alan Rosenberg Show on YouTube, and we'll hear from him later about his love for Peter Wolf and music in general. And thank you, lastly, to Peter Wolf himself and his publicist, Adam Klein, who were so generous and kind to connect me with Peter. Peter sat with me for an hour and we just talked, and he's just a lovely soul, and I am so grateful to him and always will be. I wanted to mention the next book for our book club, if you are interested in what we'll be reading January 21st. Well, here's Peter's book. I'll put this back here. Waiting on the Moon, Artists, Poets, Drifters, Grifters, and Goddesses. But we're going to be reading this book. It's called Boy from the North Country by Sam Sussman. I don't know if you've heard about it. I've talked about it a little bit on the radio, but it is interestingly a autobiographical novel. So it is a novel where all the names have been changed, but it's really about him, and he may be the son of Bob Dylan, and it's really an homage to his mom. And at the end of her life, he found out more about her relationship with Bob, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give too much away, but we'll be reading that on January 21st. And a few books just for the holidays. I just wanted to mention we have Patti Smith's amazing new memoir, Bread of Angels. It's beautiful. I don't know if they're still available, but here on the Vineyard, they have signed copies. And as always, speaking of goddesses, right? She is just one of the great rock and rollers and is a beautiful writer as well. Paul McCartney, Wings. This is a new story of Band on the Run, edited by Ted Widmer. And it's based on, he collected over 500,000 words from interviews with Paul and his friends and family, and it's full of photos. So it's really good if you like Wings. The Uncool is Cameron Crowe's new memoir. I had to mention it because I just finished it and it's so good. And if you love Almost Famous or Fast Times at Ridgemount High or any of his Rolling Stone writing, it is a great memoir. And lastly, Annie Lennox's new retrospective. This is what they call a visual memoir, and it's basically tons of photographs and lots of writing of hers, but photos of her and her life, and it's quite beautiful. So you never know if you're looking for gifts and books. So again, welcome. We have almost 40 people here. If you have your camera off, don't worry, you can still ask questions when we open things up for discussion. Welcome. If you're just tuning in, I'm Polly Simpkins. I'm the host of Rock and Roll Book Club, and I'm so grateful to be here with you tonight and to celebrate really, truly Peter Wolf and the legacy that is his music, of course, but also his writing and this wonderful book that he shared with, just so vulnerably and openly shared his life with us. So if you're new to Rock and Roll Book Club, we start out with a short video. It's actually 15 minutes long, and it's some backstory on Peter, on the book, and then some clips from my interview with him. And again, thank you to him and his graciousness for spending time, as he is in demand with this new book. So kick back, relax, and we will get started with the video on Peter Wolf. Afterwards, we'll open it up for discussion and talk about it in any way that it comes up. Thanks for being here.
Peter Wolf is a legendary musician, frontman, solo artist, and creative thinker. Born in the Bronx on March 7, 1946, he attended the High School of Music and Art in Harlem. In 1964, Peter moved to Boston and attended School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University, where he studied painting, shared a room with budding film director David Lynch, and formed a band called the Hallucinations, which performed around Boston's Combat Zone. While still in college, Peter was asked to help establish a new radio station called WBCN and became their first all-night DJ, creating the moniker Woofa Goofa as his on-air personality, often interviewing well-known musicians across genres as they toured through Boston. Peter joined Jay Giles' band as lead vocalist in 1967, opening for acts like B.B. King, the Allman Brothers, the Byrds, and was one of the first bands to play at the Boston Tea Party, one of Boston's most iconic music venues ever. Jay Giles released their self-titled debut studio album on November 16, 1970, on Atlantic Records, and spent the next 10 years developing their signature sound and releasing widely celebrated albums like Full House, Bloodshot, Blow Your Face Out, and Sanctuary, developing a deeply devoted fan base. In 1981, with the advent of MTV, the band released their album Freeze Frame, which enjoyed even more success and visibility as a band. Jay Giles toured with the Rolling Stones, shared stages with the Allman Brothers, Frank Zappa, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, among many others. After 17 years with the band, Peter left Jay Giles due to creative differences regarding the band's evolution and sound. Peter released his first solo album, Lights Out, in 1984, and has gone on to release 8 solo albums in total, his most recent, A Cure for Loneliness, which dropped in 2016. From the beginning of his solo career, Peter has been a master collaborator, working with artists like Aretha Franklin, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, Merle Haggard, Nico Case, and Shelby Lynne. As a solo artist, he has continued to showcase the genius that Peter Wolf's unique voice, expression, and musicianship brings to audiences around the world. Peter's memoir, Waiting on the Moon, Artists, Poets, Drifters, Grifters, and Goddesses, was published on March 11, 2025, to critical acclaim. I recently had a chance to sit and talk with Peter about his remarkable life and his art. I had wondered what has guided him from his early days in New York to more recently writing his memoir, and quickly I learned that it's endless curiosity that makes Peter Wolf one of the greatest rock and roll frontmen, musicians, and storytellers in rock and roll history.
As far as curiosity, I tried to, the people that I was fortunate enough to meet, and it's an interesting group. Once I realized and started writing, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about them. And so, as I say, Christopher Isherwood, who is a writer who wrote a book, Berlin Stories, that was turned into Cabaret, the play Cabaret, he had a line, I am a camera with my shutter always open. And so that's what I tried to do. And books that I've read, especially by musicians, they'll talk about, well, you know, when we ran into Sonny Boy Williamson, or when we ran into Bo Diddley, and Bo Diddley was on the bill or something, but they don't really tell you, or some of the books don't really give you a picture of what was Bo Diddley like, or what was Muddy Waters like. And so I tried to write about these people that I admired and was fans of, and that I got to know. What was it like to spend time with Van Morrison. I mean, what's he like? And, so that was my quest.
Yeah, well, you pulled it off 100%. In the prologue, you talk about experiencing both joy and sadness, and kind of you say the exaltation of rediscovery combined with the realization of profound loss of the many people who played such important roles in your life. And how was it writing about people who are still alive, in terms of you were so vulnerable in this book and so honest? And what was that like? I know some of the people had passed away, but some are still here. What was that process like for you?
No, I just tried to be truthful, and I didn't want it to be a kiss and tell book. There's a lot, when you know someone intimately, if that's what you're writing about, there's a lot of geography one can go through. But I tried to pick things that would bring the person to life without, as I say, being in any way scandalous or kiss and tell, because I admired these people.
Right.
Even in my marriage, where I talk about the different chapters, it's interesting because the two subjects I didn't want to write about when I first started was the J. Giles Band and my marriage to Faye Dunaway. And the reason for that was I thought, there's so many other interesting things. I'd like to make it like a collection of adventures that I've had. And I didn't want to get into any behind closed doors situations, things that might, and a lot of the books about bands, they go into such depth about, how they got the deal and all. And that's okay if you're interested in that particular band or artist. And I tried to make this maybe the book a little more open to a wider audience. But as I started, the publisher and my agent said, Pete, people are going to ask about the J. Giles Band. What happened? How come you're no longer in it? And so I decided to deal with that. And I was with Grace O'Connor, who I dedicated the book, and she had finished this book. I think it was called The Long Goodbye. It was a book about the making of Chinatown. I was telling her, well, she felt the book didn't really give her much information. I said, well, it's interesting, Grace, being on the set in Chinatown. I remember meeting Polanski and blah, 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 blah. And I start telling this story, and she goes, oh my God. She says, Peter, you're telling me more that I want to know than this book all about Chinatown. You got to write about it. So I wrote a Chinatown chapter, and then I just decided, I had a pretty fine romance, and it was, while it lasted, we had quite a great relationship and had a lot of adventures. And so I tried to capture it, and one chapter led to another, and I go through the whole arc because we had a lot going against us, being our careers so different. But while we were together, it was really quite an amazing and intoxicating relationship.
And what was BCN like back then? What?
Well, BCN was an incredible experience because it was new. It was on the FM dial. There wasn't much on the FM dial, classical music and talk shows, because most people, there was no FM radios in cars. It was just AM radio. But I was the late night DJ. And I was the Wolf of Goof of Mama Tooth, making your knees freeze, your bladder splatter. If it's in you, it's got to come out, because that's what rock and roll is all about, doing it to and getting right through and having a little fun until the midnight sun. Give us a call and don't you stall. We're going to be playing it to y'all. And that's how I would
great.
Do that from 12 to 5 in the morning. 7 days a week sometimes.
That's a lot. But how fun. And there's a photo in the book of Van Morrison, him coming in and you interviewing him.
So when musicians and people were in town, the TV went off at about midnight. They'd have the national anthem and snow. So slowly people started to discover by word of mouth that there was this radio station with this wild, crazy guy, playing, and I played everything from, Muddy Waters to Hank Williams to Bob Dylan to Van Morrison to Love to all sorts of different, artists. And it was just a great combination. And it was great for me because the phone calls late at night and the people I would connect to and musicians who were in town would hear about it. And so I got to interview people. My first interview was Roland Kirk, the great jazz saxophonist. And then I interviewed Carla Thomas, Van Morrison, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Rod Stewart, Jeff Beck, Ronnie Wood. It's a big list of people that came through, John Lee Hooker. But the station being as new as it was, there was no tape. So you couldn't even tape the shows because you couldn't even afford tape. So all those, they say that radio waves go out into space and they just keep traveling. So somewhere maybe past Neptune, I'm interviewing Van Morrison or Muddy Waters. They're out there.
You talk about being with the Stones. Stones wrote the book on how a successful tour should be run. And you said, I was awed by Mick's extreme discipline. And I was wondering if one of my favorite stories in the book is you going to Ireland with him and having that first Guinness.
Oh, yeah.
Such a great memory.
Yeah, we got to the Sherborne Hotel, which is a big old hotel in Dublin, and they had closed the bar. And when Mick arrived, they were going to do the biggest concert in Ireland at that time, the Rolling Stones, and there was a whole lot of difficulties that I explained in that chapter. But I kept saying to Mick on the flight over, "Oh, I can't wait to have a Guinness in Ireland. I can't wait to have a Guinness in Ireland. Everybody says a Guinness in Ireland is like no other Guinness anywhere. It doesn't travel. You got to have it in Ireland." And so when we got there, the bar had just closed, and the law was the law. And Mick was able to kind of, through a wink and a nod, get the bar to open for just the two of us. And we sat there for quite a while, having many Guinnesses. At least I did.
I bet. Oh my gosh, what a memory, the two of you sitting there. There's so many things in this book, and you just think, gosh, I was talking on the radio the other day about the picture of you and was it Chuck? I'm trying to remember if it was Chuck Berry. Well, I have the book right here, but with the Stones, it's you, Keith Richards, and
Chuck Berry.
And I was thinking his influence, and I know on Keith in particular, but so many you and so many musicians, but to sit like that with them, and then you talking about being in front of all those people and the giant crowds and what that must have been like. It's awe-inspiring.
That photo is one of I look at it, because you have Chuck Berry, who's the master. You have Keith Richards, who is his devoted student. And you have this little yank, me, who's like the pupil, and just being on the same couch with these two great masters and knowing how much, Keith did a whole film on Chuck, Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. And you could see a lot of the conflicts and the artistic tensions that were developed. But, Keith loved Chuck. And Chuck was a difficult person, to put it, mildly. And the film, shows a lot of the difficulties. But being on the couch with those two great musical giants was such a thrill for me. So witnessing Sly's performance had an immediately profound effect on me. I sat there reflecting on my future. And, Sly is on stage, and maybe 20 minutes, the band continued to play. Sly just, yells to everybody, "I want to take you higher." And everybody goes, "Higher, I want to take you higher, higher." And this Sly just walks off stage, and everybody's kind of stunned. It was only like 20 minutes. We're all looking at each other. It was very few people there. And suddenly leaping away from his keyboard, Sly yelled to the band, "Hit it, fellas." And he raised his hands and shouted to the audience, I want to take you higher. To which all the assembled returned the shout, higher, over and over, until suddenly he disappeared as quickly as he entered. I could almost hear the questioning audience wondering, is that it? Just a handful of songs? Maybe 20 minutes?
I gotta find those results from that.
The band continued to play until the guitarist thanked everyone for coming, and the house lights came on. There was a gentle round of applause, followed by hushed whispers, like those one might hear at the wake of a distant relative. The audience members donned their coats and headed quietly towards the exit. Witnessing Sly's performance had an immediately profound effect on me. I sat there reflecting on the future of my own career. And this is after the Giles Band. After almost 17 years, the Giles Band had finally achieved the success we had worked so hard for. But I could already feel tensions building within the band. Success is relative, but once you've attained a certain degree of it, few things can prove more maddening than trying to prevent it from slipping away. I didn't know it then, but soon I'd be facing my own cataclysmic changes of my own. The end of the Giles Band and the beginning of a new career as a solo artist. Hold on. I could suddenly realize that only the bartender was left, collecting the empties. I contemplated for a moment going backstage, but I instead put on my coat and hat and headed for the door, climbing the stairs into that cold, snowy night as the snow grew deeper and deeper throughout the city. How far a drop can it possibly be when you fall from the public eye? It was a long walk home.
Wow. Thank you so much for reading that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey, everybody, I'm Polly Simpkins. For those who joined while we were watching that video, thanks for coming. We just heard a little bit from Peter Wolf. I meant to mention before we watched the video that he kind of slips into his reading about Sly, and I meant to introduce that because it was kind of a break in the video. But when we got together and I had the interview with him, he just kind of grabbed his book and started reading different passages. Another one is his time spent with Tennessee Williams, which is a beautiful passage, and he read that to me because he said Tennessee has spent time here on the vineyard and on the Cape and wanted to share that. So that whole raw interview, an hour long, will be available on the book club website in the next week or so. And I really urge you to listen to it because he was so fun to talk to. And as you can see, just full of stories. And if you've read the book, you know it is just chock full of stories about these incredible people he's met. And as we heard him say at the beginning, it's all about them. It wasn't about him. And I love that about Peter. So we're going to open it up now. If anybody has anything to say, if anyone's read the book, would love to hear what you thought about it. Again, those people with your cameras off, no worries, but know that if you want to ask a question, you can still ask a question or talk, even though we can't see you. That's totally fine. And I also mentioned before that Alan Rosenberg is here, who has a great show on YouTube called The Alan Rosenberg Show and is a devoted lover of Peter Wolf. So he's here to answer questions about Peter's discography, if you're interested. And let me know if you guys have anything to say or what you thought about it or what you think about Peter. If you've seen Jay Giles or him perform solo, just you can jump right in.
I actually enjoyed it because I grew up with Peter. I was in New York. I grew up in New York, went to the same place as he did, and I went to college in Worcester. And right after BCN started, so we listened to Peter Wolf every night because there was nothing else to listen to in Worcester and not much else to do in Worcester. So, and it was great because he played a lot of the demo tapes for the Jay Giles Band. And actually, Jay Giles went to WPI for one semester with us. And it's funny, WPI still considers him an alumni. I'm like, one semester really doesn't make you an alumni, but it was just, thinking he's going to be an engineer and now he becomes the band. But it was fun. He played a lot of the demo tapes, and he used to call them the bathroom tapes because he said they were in a recording studio so small it probably used to be a bathroom.
Oh, I love it.
But it was just the book brought back all sorts of great memories from then. So that time and everything else when there weren't big concert shows, they were playing small little gyms and stuff like that. And Jay Giles played all over the Worcester area. I can't count how many times I've seen him. So,
Wow, that's
but,
amazing. And Boston at that time must have been so fun.
oh, it was. And the best one, Peter mentioned the book, but they played a very small school in Worcester called Becker Junior College. It was on a snowy
Yes.
night. And it was a blanket concert. There couldn't have been 100 people there. And the warm-up band is on stage playing, and it's the old time, high school gym where the stage is right there and while the warm-up band is playing, the entire Jay Giles band came out and sat with everybody in the audience. And we're just sitting there, passing bottles of wine around, just having a great time. It was just such a great time back then. It's amazing.
Gosh, I bet. Oh, what fun memories. Thank you so much for sharing that. And do you remember kind of Jay Giles around school, or was that a different time?
I didn't really know him when he went to school there. He was not in the same fraternity as I was, so
Oh,
but once the band hit, and so it was just kind of nice
short-lived.
yeah, just that time was fun. The social chairmans that we had at school then were just amazing. The bands that played in Worcester were just amazing.
Yeah. And all the bands playing colleges back then. It's so amazing. Did you ever go to Boston Tea Party, or does anybody here ever go? Because it was before my time, but that sounds really fun.
Yeah, went to the Tea Party, went to the Rathskeller, all those fun places. So
Thank you. Thanks for coming and sharing.
wouldn't miss it for this. So
He's a great guy. What a wonderful soul he is. Thanks.
Holly,
Yes.
how are you? This is Ken from Fall River. I don't want to take a lot of time. I do want to say, listening to Peter talk about, the fact that fame at the height of Jay Giles and the demise of Jay Giles. My point is, I saw him play a number of times at the Narrows in Fall River, and the Narrows doesn't hold more than 200 people, but you don't have to be a musician to understand his genuineness, and he's a good writer. So it's just such a great expression to be able to see someone of his ability in a small venue, and he seems to revel in those small venues. The
Yeah. It,
intimateness, yeah, of seeing, of 400 people appreciate what he can do, and it's a great experience. Yeah.
and when was that? When
Oh,
are you talking?
it has to have been pre-COVID, so we're talking maybe 7 years ago. He would try to do consistent years of playing every year, and uh, classically the show would sell out and they'd add another show, and it would sell out just as quick, and he would play back-to-back shows. I was never fortunate enough to see him twice in a row, but again, you're 50 feet from him, much like you were in a sense in your video conference with him, but not going to take a lot of time. It's just very appreciative of what you're doing with
No,
MVY.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing. I
welcome.
love hearing about that. And we can ask Alan too. I wanted to get to Anna, and they have their hand raised, Anna and Nick. But yeah, I love hearing those stories, and I can see why a smaller venue would be perfect for him, because he's such a storyteller and such a poet. And as we heard from him reading, like just as he's such a student of people and a student of story. So thank you.
Uh, Two things. I want to echo what Ken said, because Anna and I saw Peter Wolf at the Narrows in the summer of 2024, and he was sort of workshopping some of the stories that were later in the book. and then weaving them in with the songs. And the losing his first girlfriend at age 6, leading into Love Stinks to open the show was absolutely hilarious. But the second thing I wanted to say, we were talking about BCN earlier and a little before our time too, I'm sad to say, but it lives on because we saw this wonderful documentary on GBH several years ago, and they had and the camera's not picking it up, but WBCN and the American Revolution tells the story of the Tea Party and everybody from Peter Wolf to the time that the news director's house got busted by the FBI, and he started interviewing the FBI agents about why they were there, to when they moved to the top of the Prue Tower. And we got the book. It also has some really wonderful pictures of Peter Wolf, including this one with Faye Dunaway, where they're sort of, they look like real hippie royalty in it. But we just wanted to make sure we let everybody know about that. If they hadn't seen it, every once in a while that documentary pops back up. You might be able to get it in a disc or something. But well, there's Peter.
Oh, I love that photograph. Yeah, I saw the documentary. It's amazing. And Kenneth said in the chat, he said, yeah, PG did a great show on the BCN book and history. I agree. PJ also. And they showed the documentary at the Narrows. Like, how great is that? Like, it is. It's a good deep dive and a reminder of the importance of radio and BCN. They were such pioneers back then, and they were so great. And I love that they made that film about them.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Sure.
And I just wanted to.
Isn't it amazing, though, that with all of the mention of how many volumes of drinks were drunk, that he's still alive?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. I was thinking about that. They talked so much about that. And I was talking to him about in the interview about how lots of times he would be just curious and like showing up at clubs and wanting to see the bands, and Muddy Waters and others, they just wanted alcohol, and they didn't always have alcohol in the back rooms for the band. So he would be the supplier and like go get them whiskey or whatever they wanted. And I just think the whole culture, I mean, but he looks great, and he seems, I mean, his memory is amazing. So I agree. I don't know how it happened. Yes, go ahead. You just raised your hand. I'm not.
Nikki?
Yeah,
Are
go
you
ahead.
calling me? So I chose to read this book when it came out, just because I think Peter Wolf is an incredible frontman. I mean, just like one of the best. And I was fortunate enough to do the audiobook, which I'm so thankful he does it himself. And every night at dinner, I would, after listening to it during the day, I would regale my husband with, oh my God, this guy, he's like Forrest Gump, because the amount of people, the life that he has led, he really could have like 5 books, truly. And I didn't know that much about him going in, but to listen to him talk about everything from meeting, there's a story with Eleanor Roosevelt and Marilyn Monroe sitting beside him in a theater, and his roommate being David Lynch, and Tennessee Williams and Truman Capote. And oh my gosh, it is so staggering. I could listen to it again. Actually, I'm reminded just his number of stories, even if he hadn't talked about his marriage, just the amount of experiences he had, and the anecdote that you're referring to, so many of these times he just walked in to a scene like the bathroom. He's in the bathroom, and those guys are talking about, oh my gosh, there's only coffee at this place. This is only a coffee shop. Next thing, he's hustling to go get alcohol, and you go from he just happens to be in the bathroom to next thing they're staying at his tiny little apartment. I mean, So if anybody hasn't had a chance to read this is probably one of the best rock and roll stories I've ever read. And I've read hundreds. And so
I know,
I'm
same.
so excited
I
that you
know,
had
I
this.
so agree with you, and I am so glad that you said that because it really is. One thing I talked to him about in the interview was his curiosity, and I think that has led him to a lot of wonderful places. He was always just so interested in everybody and how the world worked and how music worked, and I think it made him a better musician. And and you mentioning he's one of the great, if not one of the greatest frontmen. I want to ask Alan Rosenberg, who's here from his show. And one of the reasons I met him, which I was saying earlier, is I was researching Peter and going through the internet, just kind of finding old videos. And I found Alan Rosenberg and his show, and he can tell you more about it, but he says in one of the clips, he talks about Peter Wolf's music, that I think he says he's the second best frontman in the world. So, Alan, are you there? Do you want to speak to that? You have to unmute yourself too. Don't forget.
How's that?
There he goes. Thank you so much, Nikki.
And thank you, Polly, in having me on here so much. And Nikki, I loved what you said, and I thoroughly agree. I always say that Peter Wolf is the second greatest frontman of all time. And I think Peter Wolf's musical story, because I'm musical oriented, and the Jay Giles Band, and then his solo career is honestly, without exaggeration, one of the most interesting rock and roll stories of all time. I actually wish he went more into it in the book because he didn't want to go there. I wish he did because it's a fascinating and, in my opinion, heartbreaking story, and I'd love to know more details on that. I mean, I could tell you growing up, so I was born in 63. So in the 70s, Jay Giles started in 1970, and I don't want to bore everybody, but their first album was in 1970. And they did 10 albums in 11 years, because back in that time, they were, you know, plugging out the albums. Jay Giles was always known as the American Rolling Stones, which was always an exaggeration because they don't really sound like the Rolling Stones. They're musically a very interesting band because they only had one guitarist. Instead of a second guitarist, his name was Magic Dick, who was the harmonica player. So that's how they kind of did their musical, interweaving. And you got Peter in the front, the second greatest frontman, I think, behind Mick Jagger. And they were spectacular. No, very few bands could touch them live, but even their albums were really solid. But the interesting thing, they were on Atlantic Records, the ultimate record label in the 70s for rock bands, and they never sold a lot of records. It's fascinating. Their original run on Atlantic, which ended in 1977 with an album called Monkey Island, which they actually changed their name to Giles for that one album. They only had one top 10 album in America, which was called Bloodshot, and it had a hit single, Give It To Me, which everybody would know. So they didn't have a lot of commercial success album-wise in America, and overseas they were virtually unknown. But they were so well respected, and then their live albums like Full House that you showed, Polly, it's one of the great live albums. They had another one called Blow Your Face Out. These are two of the most exciting. You really sense them live. I get chills just trying to describe it because nobody is like Peter Wolf, and nobody was really like the Jay Giles Band, but they just didn't have that commercial success. And then in 1978, they go to EMI and they put out an album called Sanctuary. It was a great song on there called One Last Kiss. And I was like all over it, and I'm like, they're going to finally break it. And they didn't. But then they did Love Stinks in 1980, and now they're starting to get popular, and everybody knew Love Stinks and Come Back and things like that. And then in 81, they do Freeze Frame, and all of a sudden they get a #1 album in America. And actually in the UK, I think it hit #3, and now they're a huge band. And what happens? They actually kick Peter Wolf out. And that's where I wish the book would go into it more. Because they're struggling for 11 years and they finally get a #1 album. They break in Europe. And what band would I said it's like the Rolling Stones firing Mick Jagger. How can you do that? And
Yeah.
then, and then that's pretty much the Jay Giles does one album after that and it bombs and that's the end of them. And then if I hope I'm not boring everybody, but you now Peter in 1984 releases his first solo record, Lights Out, and that was a fairly successful record. It hit like number 24. That's as close as he ever came in the United States for a hit album, and it didn't go top 20, but it came close. But his solo career, and if anybody wants to discuss it, I could really go into it, but I don't want to
That's for
monopolize the
sure.
time. His solo career is amazing. He has 8 albums that are fantastic. I mean, they're great. And the first 4 are very Jay Giles like, very upbeat and very, you just can't stop dancing. And for me, it always bothers me because I'm such a fan, and I'm like, why is radio not playing this? This is a hit. You know, why are they not pushing him? He's the greatest frontman. He's got a killer band. And your other viewer said, well, I could see him in a small club. And he's amazing in a small place. I've seen him multiple times. But he deserves more. He deserves to be huge. Jay Giles
Yeah.
deserved to be huge. And then the last 4 albums he did, like Sleepless and Midnight Souvenirs, he's much more, I can't come up with a good term. He's become like a more adult-oriented artist, not AOR selling out pop. He's more mature. And these are really, really top quality albums. They still got a couple of songs that should have been hits, but they're just amazing records and they just don't sell. I mean, of course, nowadays nobody really sells from our age group the music we love, but he just deserves so much more. And I loved your interview with him, Polly. I actually saw an interview with him on another station not that long ago, pushing the book, and I felt like that particular interview was very down.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you had that with him. I think he put so much effort into the book, and maybe he was expecting more from the book. But that's something that my heart goes out to him because he deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He deserves to be known as the second greatest frontman ever. He deserves to be known as a guy who's put out 8 incredibly quality solo records. And Jay Giles also had a great discography. And it's like, what happened?
Right.
So I'm
I
sorry if I rambled.
No, it's fine. I really appreciate that. And this is what you
It's
can.
passion. I mean it. It's
I
like
know.
it
Well, this is
kills
what you can
me.
expect when you watch the Alan Rosenberg show. It's fascinating. And he has, how many albums and CDs do you have in your collection?
Oh, me? So yeah, it's about 5,800. I'm actually showing every one of them. It's an ongoing
Yeah.
series.
So the show is
But
that he takes out different albums and around different artists and explores them. It's really, really great. But I wanted to say because you were talking about him, and I agree. I've seen some interviews where he is kind of down. I loved my conversation with him because he's such a gentle soul, which I didn't expect. And I really think that needs to be honored sometimes with interviews with him because he is a poet and he's a brilliant, brilliant writer and he's sensitive, you know. So I really let him kind of come to it and what he wanted. And then when he started reading from his book, and I
yeah.
agree, by the way, I think it was Nikki who said about the audiobook, if you get a chance, and I told Peter this too, it is really, he did a beautiful job, and that's not an easy thing to do. But yeah, just like what you were just talking about, I did get a chance to talk to him a little bit about Jay Giles. Of course, I wanted to ask him about it, and he goes through it. He said, one of the things he said to me was, I explain it in the book and really go through it as specific as I can. But then he went on to say, and I shared this clip today on the radio, he went on to say it was he and who's his co-writer,
In the Jay Giles was Seth Justman, the keyboard player.
Thank you, Seth Justman, right? I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
And he talks about all the famous frontmen, you know, Jagger and Richards and how it's a very close relationship. And he told me it was very much like a marriage with children. And he said they went through everything together. They really went through a lot, and they were very, very close. And he said when he was asked to leave the band, he said it was just devastating. And I asked him what it was like for him after that point, because and he talks about in the book, it's not till Bruce Springsteen, like 10 years later, after Jay Giles asked him, I think, to do a project with him or something. And I was like, what was that time like? And he was very hesitant to talk about it. And I just think it was heartbreaking, and it broke his heart, truly. And so and as Kenneth just said, some things are better left unsaid. And I agree. I think, the beautiful thing about him, and you talk about this in your show, the one I saw, is that Seth Justman went on to release, didn't he release an album, or they released one without Peter? Just one.
Yeah.
And
this is what it looked like it was a disaster and deserved to be a disaster.
Yeah. So, and then he went on to have such a great solo career. And at MVY, we play him and we love Peter Wolf. So I feel like, he kind of had, I don't want to say the last word, but he went on to be the creative person he is. And I think it's one thing when we talked about, when I interviewed him, is I said, I learned so much from you in this book. And he said, what do you mean? What did you learn? And I said, I learned about being curious and the importance of showing up and reaching out and saying, can I help you? I'm interested in you and I want to know more about you. And he really liked that, that there was some teachings in there, and that he is imparting something. And I think everyone who's read the book would agree that it's definitely a really huge homage to him. And I think it's a book that you can learn from as well as enjoy.
I think it's also wonderful that he's so genuine. He's a great frontman to watch, and he's a great dancer, and he's got all these great Peter Wolf moves that are his thing. But it's genuine. We live in a disposable kind of manufactured pop world, and even in the golden age of rock and roll, there was always this manufactured pop. You see a guy like Peter Wolf and the Jay Giles band, when they were together, it was genuine, it was real, and it's emotional. And that's what's so great about music. And like my channel, I try to turn people onto the music I love because it's genuine, and it's like the world is missing out, and people who like music are missing out. I wish there was more stations like what you do, Polly. He deserves so much more, and it actually makes me sad in a way, and that's part of what I try to do on my channel is this is great. I could tell you a song or two from the first listen, you're going to love it. You'll be like, how did I not know this? And it deserves to be out there.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
for the passion that you bring. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say something? I see a hand raised. Beth, you don't look like a Beth, but go ahead. If you unmute yourself.
It's Erin, Polly.
Oh, Erin. It says
Hi. I know.
From Chicago, Erin?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Again.
I wanted to say that I didn't expect the book to become a little personal for me, but his chapter on Muddy Waters, I grew up with Muddy Waters kids and spent many, many hours and days at their home. And the way he so tenderly described the relationship, and he talked about Bo, whom I also knew, first of all, it brought back a lot of memories, but it was just such an interesting and touching perspective, because it was not one that I knew, being there in the later years, because Peter Wolf said that would have been like 66, 67, 68. His children were just getting born, the ones that I grew up with. But I just really appreciated and was touched by how tender he was about their relationship.
Yeah. Did you know him in Chicago? Where were you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago.
Yes.
Wow, what an experience. How did that happen? Were you neighbors or?
His daughter, who's a year apart from myself, we were best friends growing up as adolescent and teenage girls.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's incredible. It's funny
yeah.
because in the interview I talked to him about that, and I also played that today on the radio, and it's part of the interview. But he talked about a really, and I'm sure you remember from the book that he talks about how, or maybe I can't remember if it's in the book, but when he was talking to me, he talked about how Muddy couldn't read, and
Mhm.
he would read
Yeah.
him his reviews,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they just became, he said he became like his valet, and they
Uh-huh.
just got really, really close. And he was such an important person for him musically, but also
Mhm.
just as a person, and such a lovely soul. So how cool that you do
Yeah.
remember you, so you probably, yeah, I mean, he probably saw Peter Wolf just when he was on the East Coast.
Yes. Yes. And of course, by the time I was, intertwined with their family, it was the mid 70s into the early 80s until Muddy's death. But yeah, it was really touching. And
Wow.
his friend and assistant Bo, funny, kind of a funny note, his accent was so thick, his southern Mississippi, I don't know if even accent is really what you want to say, but you could never understand a word he said.
Oh, I love it.
And he was such a sweetheart, you know.
I bet. Oh, he
But
sounds like it. And I think he and Peter were just
yeah,
meant to know each other. They're the perfect twin souls for sure.
yeah. So it was unexpected when reading the book, and it just took me to this really personal place. So just wanted to put that
Thank
out.
you, Aaron. It's so good to see you, and thanks for sharing it.
Yeah,
Say hi
likewise.
to Jim too.
Will do.
I figured out how to unmute.
Okay, go ahead.
I totally agree with Alan's passion about this. I was unfamiliar with Peter's solo career, and with his extensive discography, and you bringing this up in advance of this, we've been listening to him just for every day, pretty much.
Oh, good.
He has a huge list, and I love his songs too. His lyrics are really funny and interesting, and all over the place, and his music's great. And I wouldn't, I'm not sure I'd rank him at second, but he's way up there in frontman, no question about it.
It's a good question to ponder, though, isn't it?
Sure is. It's a really good one. Like best guitarist, best frontman.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank you, Polly. Thank you for doing this. By the way, I just want to tell you one other thing. Out of the first one that you did with David Byrne and Chris, and that one, I got into the Tom Tom Club, leading from one to the other. So I thank you for that too.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for saying that. That was the first one I interviewed Chris France, and his book Remain in Love was so good.
Yeah, and David Byrne's new tour is unbelievable too. It's really
It is. I know, I saw it too. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anna and Nick said, "Hey, Alan, how many of those albums are still available?"
That's an amazing question, and not to be a downer again, when you look at Peter Wolf's solo career, they're virtually not available on CD or anywhere. It's the damnedest thing.
Huh.
I mean, this is his last album from 2016. This is probably still around. This is an incredible album. They're all really good.
I know,
You
they're
can't
so
go
good.
wrong with any of the last. The last four are like more adult kind of and more well-rounded per se. But none of these are available except for this one, as far as I know. This one might still be available, but the last time I looked, you can't get them.
Is your collection, Alan, you have vinyl too, right?
Yeah, I'm more of a CD person, believe it or not. I have a lot of vinyl, but when I get a good CD of it, my vinyl goes. It's about the music, and
Yeah.
I only listen to physical media, but I listen to CDs 90% of the time. Yeah, but I have a
Nice.
lot of vinyl. The first one, this is his first solo record. You can't even get this on CD. It's not even on CD.
That'd be a good question for Peter. I wish he was here.
Yeah,
I always
I
invite.
actually, my question for Peter was, I wish he has 8 solo records. For one thing, he's so incredible live, even solo. And when I've seen him live, I'm like, God, he's got to put out a live album. And he never put out a live solo album.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
And
question.
Yeah, and the other thing is he really needs a compilation. In my mind, and I'd love to ask Peter this as well. To me, he has two solo careers. The first four are more
Right. It
not
changes.
as, but they're all amazing. He needs like a good anthology. Get a record company that could put out a best of Peter
Yeah,
Wolf.
maybe this book will help do that because I think it has shown light on him and reminded people of the gift that he is. So
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
yeah, I know. I always invite sometimes oh, Ken, go ahead.
I guess my question throughout this discussion is I'm hearing in different moments that he might have been down. Why do you think he might have been disappointed by the book? Like in your discussions with him, was it even, broached about what his expectations of the book were and how, yeah.
I didn't think he seemed down about the book at all. He seemed really excited about it and happy. I think some of the interviews I've seen, I feel like Peter's somebody who he's gentle and you just need to let him. Sometimes I feel like he gets overpowered by some of those interviews, but I think the book himself, I think he's quite proud of it and he loved reading from it and
he should be.
Yeah, the life he's had is and he loves sharing about it.
Yeah. Oh, so my last story is I'm very much proud of being in this generation. I remember going to school in Northeast, and I remember being on Newberry Street and seeing Peter Wolf and Faye Dunaway walk across the street. One of the greatest pleasures of my life. Just like we're all in a car, we're looking, and I was trying to figure out how to communicate to people who's passing. And by the time I was able to get my words out, they were a pass and they would not have believed me. So anyway, thank you for what you do.
I love that. That's the best feeling.
Oh, so great. It was so great.
Oh, Robert, go ahead. Robert's next.
Can I say something, Polly?
Yeah.
Just to answer Ken, because I think it was me who said that. When Peter announced his book, I was so excited. And then I was watching all the interviews, like the one that Polly just showed, your interview with him. And he was out there, really working the book. And I forgot which one I was watching. I was watching it on YouTube. And he was definitely feeling down. And the person who interviewed, and I wish I could remember which one it was, but it's out there somewhere. They said to him, "You seem a little down." And I'm paraphrasing, but basically Peter actually said in the interview, he said, he's working so hard being on TV, he's pushing the book. And he said in the interview that he felt like the publisher had already moved on, like kind of like the movie business or the record business. They did the book, they initially pushed it. He's still out there pushing it, but he felt like the publisher wasn't really pushing it anymore. They're already on to the next book. And I guess maybe I don't know what the sales of the book are, but maybe he felt that all the effort he put into it, and I don't know, financially, whatever, maybe he was a little disappointed in that. So I don't want to mislead that he's always down, but he was definitely down on that, and it was about the book.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. And that is kind of common in that book world. I do know
I would
that.
imagine, yeah.
It says Robert Greenway has a raised hand.
I just want to quickly say I really enjoyed the book. It was such a revelation because I've known Jay Giles, Peter Wolf, that was the soundtrack from my high school and college.
Yeah.
But then I kind of lost track of his solo career, and I never knew he had all these connections to, these greats of blues and rock and roll and everything. And I just really enjoyed like hearing the story of him going into Jonathan Swift's to see Sly and the Family Stone or Sly. And it's like it brought back great memories of, growing up outside of Cambridge. So.
Oh, yeah, I know. I agree. I think for that generation, that's amazing. Do you remember seeing him?
I'm not sure if I ever saw
Giles
or Jay Giles. I just remember after high school graduation, we went down at my my friend's uncle's place somewhere in Buzzards Bay, and we just had the turntable, just hitting it with that live album. Just,
Totally.
it said something on the back like recorded loud to play loud or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it said on that. Alan may
Do you
know.
live in
It's probably
Massachusetts? Are you
I
from
live in
Massachusetts?
Orlando, Florida now, but I get back to the island every couple of years and stopped in and saw PJ
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, a couple of years ago and
You grew up in
got
Massachusetts?
the merch. Lexington, Mass. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, because growing up in Massachusetts myself, Jay Giles was like it. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it
that
was
was.
just like the soundtrack to high school for sure.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you
mean, I
so
knew
much.
I thought maybe he was friendly with Steven Tyler and stuff, but I didn't know like Mick Jagger and all these other ones.
Right. It's funny, he doesn't mention Steven Tyler in this book, does he? Because
no, and he
I was
hardly
surprised.
mentions the band. I mean, I just kept waiting to see
I
him
know.
talking about that, but he never really did. So, but still. And then the other
I
thing was
know.
in that reading, it almost sounded like Kerouac the way he was reading that. It was it was great.
It
I
was
should have done the
great.
audiobook, but I did the Kindle. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love him reading, and I love that we were just chatting and he was just like, hold on a minute. And he just went and got his book and started reading from it. And I could have listened to him all day. It was so fun. I also wanted to mention, if you've read the book, one thing I talked to him about was Edie, his first girlfriend, is one of the most beautiful chapters in the book. And she is laid to rest here on the Cape. And his true love, I think, I mean, Faye Dunaway, of course, but he talks about her being so beautiful, and they would go to museums and look at art during college, and how she would stand up for him with there was like a weird fight they got in with the some gangs, and she would stand up. She was just the best. I loved her, and I told him so. I said, I feel like she is just one of your very first influences, and such a powerhouse in terms of this book, and died tragically way too young. But I loved hearing him talk about her as well. So here's to Edie and all those first loves and the people who love music as much as we do. I think they really had that in common.
And Robert, just to let you know, you have a great memory and you're spot on. I don't know if you could see it. This is the Jay Giles Band's second live album called Blow Your
Blow
Face
Your Face
Out.
Out.
And if you go on the inside, and I don't know if this will come out, but on the vinyl, this is the CD. Well, I don't know if you could see it, but it says "Made Loud to Play
Play
Loud."
loud.
that's it. Yep. And Polly played the I must have got lost intro
That's
on
right.
the
I did. Yeah, I played it today
at
on the
noon.
radio.
Yeah.
I
Brought
had
back
to,
good
because that
memories.
song with that intro, and oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Anybody else before we wrap up want to say hi or have anything to say about the book or life, anything? It's
I'd
really
like
nice
to
having
say
you all.
something, maybe. Am I on?
Sure, you are. Yes. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mark.
I really enjoyed the whole package, the book, the interview, the playlist. I thought it was really well put together. The interview, I thought that was just great. I loved it. I thought you made him feel really comfortable. And I don't know if you two were like kindred spirits because you like were DJs who interviewed musicians or what, but I just thought he was very comfortable speaking with you, and
Thank
we
you,
got
Mark.
that reading. That was like kind of an extra pearls that he threw out there, the full reading
Totally.
about him with
Totally.
yeah, Sly and then the book. I'm guilty once again. I have these preconceived notions sometimes, and I was expecting more wooba gooba with the green teeth talking at you, my references being, blow your face out mostly, and some kicking New Year's Eve shows at the Civic Center in Providence. But he was a terrific author, I thought, and very well thought out and very well read, and hanging, sipping cocktails with the art crowd and the poetry crowd, and I was just really impressed by all that. I think a lot of the references were a little lost on me to the artists and the poets. The only one I really recognized was when Merle Haggard mentioned Dickel. I knew exactly what he was talking about. That was old number 8 back in the day. It was either Jack Daniels, old number 7, or George Dickel was old number 8. But I really, really liked the book and the playlist too. I spent a lot of time on the Jay Giles section of it. I liked that the Aretha one was there, and I guess the It's Too Late for Me, the duet with Merle Haggard, wasn't on Spotify, but I did find it on YouTube, and so I went and listened to that, and that was a great song too. So just thank you very much for putting it all together. It was really entertaining. I enjoyed the whole package, and I thought you
That's
did a great
awesome.
job with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your comments, and it's a joy, and it's always nice to hear your thoughts. So thank you. And I agree. He is the people he has hung out with, Tennessee Williams. I mean, the conversations he's had, and just a reminder, as I said, he is just a student of life, and I think that's what I took away from it: is be curious and enjoy the people around you. And I really feel like he has done that in his life. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We have to wrap it up. But gosh, thanks to everyone coming, cameras on and off. We had over 45 people here at one point. So thank you for showing up, for listening to MVY Radio. Once again, thanks to Joe Stickles for his tech support. Thank you. I hope you all have happy holidays, and we'll see you in January. And keep listening. And please know we appreciate you at MVY. You guys are the best.
Thank you, Polly.
Thanks, Polly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you. Oh yeah, thanks, Alan. Oh my gosh, thanks to Alan Rosenberg, and please check out his YouTube channel, The Alan Rosenberg Show. It's a must, and for all music fashionistas, for sure. And thank you for coming, Alan. I really appreciate it.
Honestly, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And now I discovered you, and I'm watching you, and this is fantastic. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for everything you do. All of us music nerds are out here, and we're watching, and we appreciate you.
thank you.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, Polly.
Thank you, Polly.
You're welcome. Good seeing you, Tony.